And it's good afternoon to everybody in Harewood and Middleton. Again, we're at Live Pulse, another podcast from me, your host, Clive. Now, what I want to talk about, it's just brief, but it means a lot, and it means a lot to a lot of people. I'm going to read something out that one of my colleagues sent me, and I think it embeds everything that we want in this country. And I'll just start off by saying it's called I Want My Country Restored Back to the Way It Was. Now just go with it. It's a bit long in the tooth, but I'll go through it. Back to when white school children were in the majority. Back to when Janet and John were the go-to books in primary schools, not Mohammed and Aisha. Back to when parents could let their kids play out without worrying themselves sick. Back to when children were boys and girls and nothing else. Back to when our children went on day trips to museums, not mosques. Back to when school assembly included the Lord's Prayer and Christian moral values were the norm. Excuse me. Back to when there was no guilt shaming for being white or British. Back to when rioting and looting in support of George Floyd, a violent, drug-crazed criminal, would never have been tolerated. Back to when marching in support of terrorists excuse me. Back to when marching in support of terrorists would never have been tolerated. I've got a bit of bronchitis, that's what it is. Back to when marching in support of terrorists would never have been tolerated, right? Back to when our women and children were safe. That's a good one. Back to when we had freedom of speech and could air grievance without fear. Back to when, well, oh God, Jesus. You know, I mean, all these things here, politicians could answer a question without needing a high court ruling. That's a good one, actually. I mean, back to when the UK's Prime Minister would never have taken a knee to a racist organisation like Starmer with BLM. Back to when our police had a moral compass and protected all, not vile ideologues and racist rapists. Back to when Christmas was celebrated the way it should be. Christmas trees, not evergreen. Back to when we had never heard of Ramadan. Back to when groups of invaders never gathered in city centres intimidating and abusing. And back to when pride marches never existed. Back to when a man would never dream of entering a woman's toilet or locker room. Back to when a man wanted to compete against a woman in a woman-only event would have been laughed at and shamed. Back to when biological facts were facts. Back to when one income could support a family. Back to when TV shows and movies were for entertainment, not propagandizing and pushing agendas. And back to when the corrupt, unelected organisation that is the EU, not Europe, never existed. Back to when Great Britain was great. Now, you could say that all this was back in the 60s probably, 60s, 70s, but it was a good time. People that grew up in the 60s, 70s, like myself, it was a good time. You know, we were brought up properly with moral values. The skills were brilliant, the education was brilliant. You could go from one job to the next. There's loads of work. And then from the 80s, 90s to the 2000s, it all went adrift. And it went adrift when, well, basically when Tony Blair got into power. And everything just went downhill. Do Do you know that it was Blair that brought out this act that they're on about to stop councils from giving people the votes? Well, it was actually in the year 2000 when that act came out, and who was in power? Tony Blair. What were they thinking about then, 26 years hence? Oh, we'll bring this out just in case, if anything goes wrong with the elections, we can stop councils from having elections. We can stop them from, if we haven't got a chance, well, we'll make sure nobody else got a chance. So it goes back a long way. One of the other things I came across is Starmer is over in Germany. Now, isn't it funny that he's now saying that, we want to get back in with the EU, and he's on about giving our energy and net zero stuff for them to sort out. Great. Yeah. So we'll be aligning ourselves with that. To me, it's all crap. It really is crap. We shouldn't be going down that road. We should actually be doing something totally different. Like bringing this country up to 100% standard. Not all these backroom flaming meetings and one thing and another, and we don't want the people to know this and we don't want the people to know that. No, we voted you people in. Well, actually I didn't vote Labour in. I'm Reform through and through. But for those people that voted Labour in, which is about 33 point something percent, well, you should hang your heads in shame, because look what they're doing, and this is all you. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll do another podcast later on this afternoon. So thanks for listening, and as I said, this is just my views, but have a good afternoon. Thank you.